Hi guys, thanks for visiting my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something really yummy and something really fun and something that might challenge your baking skills just a little bit. We are going to be making pain au chocolat. If you are French, and I know I just butchered that, forgive me Josephine. If you're American, you are going to be making chocolate croissants. So we're going to be talking chocolate and bread today, and we're going to work on making chocolate croissants. They are absolutely delicious. If you follow me on Instagram, or if you pay attention to the community news feed on YouTube, I mentioned there that I had made them, and I shared a photo and asked if anyone was interested in learning how, and several of you chimed in and said absolutely, we are interested, please show us how. So that's what we're going to do today. I am going to be using the recipe from King Arthur Flour's website. There are lots of different recipes that you'll find on the internet, and as I kind of did some research, they're all a little bit different, but I think King Arthur's is pretty straightforward, and I found that it was easier to do than what it seemed like. You're going to be making what's called a laminated dough, and that seems kind of intimidating. I know when I first looked into making it, I'm like, that's very intimidating, or it seemed to be, until I tried it. The other thing that can make this recipe sort of intimidating is it takes 3 days to make them, but do not let that deter you. Please don't. I let it deter me in the beginning, and I'm sorry that I did, because it's just a little bit of time each day. It's not like you're spending 3 days of hands-on time. There's a lot of resting time for your dough. So the first day you're going to be making your dough, you're going to let it raise at room temperature for an hour, and then it's going to rest for at least 8 hours up to 24. Then the next day you're going to do the laminating part with some delicious butter. What could be better than butter, right? That's what gives croissants those light, flaky, puffy layers. So that's what you work on the second day, and then the third day you are going to shape them, let them raise, and then you're going to bake them off. So it's a 3-day process, but like I said, don't let that deter you. It's just a little bit of time each day, and it is so worth the effort. I was so impressed with how they turned out. Chocolate croissants are one of my husband's favorite pastries, and I'm really happy that I learned how to make them. Now, the only thing that I will say, the only special ingredient that you might want to look into are the King Arthur sells these, but you can get them at other places online. King Arthur calls them pain au chocolat sticks. They're also known as chocolate batons. So this is what they look like, and that's what they use for making the chocolate croissants. However, if you do not want to invest in those, if you don't want to find them online, I've not seen them anywhere when I've been shopping, so I think you're going to have to buy them online or from King Arthur. And but the other thing you can use is you can just chop some high quality chocolate, but make sure whatever chocolate you're using is good quality. That's going to be really important to how good they taste. So I used the chocolate sticks from King Arthur Flour, and they were absolutely delicious. I was very pleased with the quality. Now, they are not cheap, but quality chocolate is not cheap anyway. So I think what King Arthur charges is very fair, and it's cheaper if you buy 3 packages of them instead of just 1 package. So I think that they're a good value from King Arthur. But I love King Arthur Flour. You guys know that if you've watched me for any period of time. They are an employee-owned company, and I think they sell very high quality products. So I enjoy them very much, but whatever route you want to go is totally fine. So everything else you'll probably have in your pantry. It's just flour, all-purpose flour, a little bit of sugar, of course butter, and some yeast and some milk. So everything, those things you'll have in your pantry. So really the only special ingredient is the chocolate. So I think we're ready to get started. So we're going to do day 1. So here we go. Before we get started, sorry, the other thing that I wanted to mention is as you're planning to make these, my opinion, and it seems to be an opinion shared by others, these are best eaten the day that they're made. So you might want to kind of plan that way. We did have some, obviously I made a whole batch and it was just Alan and I, so I froze some and left several out to test how good they would be several days later, and they are good the next day and the following day and even the third day. But if you are familiar with eating croissants, you know they have a little bit of a buttery crunch, not necessarily a crunch, but a crunch is the only word that comes to mind to them. They lose that after the first day. So they really are best eaten the day that you make them. And I also tried heating them in the oven, and that worked well, but you still don't get back that same texture that you have the first day. They're a lot softer, which is, it doesn't ruin anything. It's just that first day, they are just so good, you could just devour the whole batch. So anyway, as you're planning to make these, just keep that in mind, that they are best eaten the day that you make them. So here we go, day one. Okay guys, here we go. We are going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I fluff, scoop, and then level off. You can certainly spoon it in and then level it with a knife if you want to, but I find that this method works pretty well for me, so I'm gonna stick with it. You just don't ever want to pack down your flour when you're baking. So we need 2 cups of flour. We need 1.5 cups of either milk, water, or a combination of milk and water. So I'm going to use all milk. Last time I used half milk, half water, and it was good, but I think the milk would just all milk would add more richness to it. So we are going to add 1.5 cups of milk. I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of softened butter. And we need 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. And then we also need 2¼ teaspoons of salt. And then we need 1/4 cup of sugar. Now I am going to be using my mixer. You guys know I love to use my mixer to make bread, but you can do this by hand. We are not going to do a lot of heavy kneading. Okay, now we're going to start slowly, and then I'm going to turn it up to a 4 on the artisan stand mixer. We just want to get everything nice and incorporated, and because we're going to add more flour. So you just want to mix it until everything is fairly smooth. Then we are going to add another 2½ cups of flour. And then we're going to turn that back on. I just have it set on a 2, so kind of a low setting, medium low setting, and you just want it to start to come together. Okay, once your dough is all together in a ball, it starts to come together in a ball, we're going to knead it just a little bit. King Arthur does not specify, it just says to lightly knead it until it starts to look smooth. And you can do this part by hand or you can use your mixer. I'm going to use my mixer. I try to do that when I can, even for kneading. So we're just going to knead it for a minute or 2 until the dough starts to look smooth. Okay, I only needed mine for about a minute. You just want your dough to come together and you want it to start to look smooth. King Arthur's instructions were just to knead it until it starts to look smooth, and that is starting to look smooth to me, and it feels smooth, so that's what I'm going to go with. And then their instructions, they also say in the instructions to be careful not to over knead it, so it's better at this point to under knead it than to over knead it. So we just want it to start to smooth out a little bit, and then we are going to put it in a lightly greased bowl, and I'm just going to use some nonstick cooking spray. And we're going to put our dough in there. And then I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap. And we're gonna let it raise at room temperature for an hour. And then after an hour, we're going to refrigerate it for up to 24. So when my hour's up, I'll bring you back and we'll put it in the fridge and get ready for day 2. Okay guys, our dough has been raising for just over an hour, and their instructions are you just want to let it sit at room temperature for about an hour until it's puffy, and you can see that it's starting to puff out here. So we're good. So all you have to do now is just stick it in the fridge as is, and you want to refrigerate it for at least 8 hours. 16 is really perfect, but you can go up to 24. So 8 to 24 hours in the fridge overnight is your best bet. So I'm gonna stick mine in the fridge and we're done with day 1. Not too hard, right? And I will meet you back here again tomorrow for day 2. Good morning, everyone. Are you ready for day 2? I am, so let's get started. Okay guys, here we go. We need to prep our butter. So what I have here, you can use wax paper or you can use parchment paper. You could also use plastic wrap. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to use some wax paper, and then I'm going to need 3 sticks of cold butter. And what we're going to do is we are going to cut each stick in half lengthwise. And then we're going to place them on our wax paper. Okay, so now we're going to take just a little bit of flour and we're going to sprinkle it on top of our butter, and then we are going to place another sheet of whatever you use, wax paper, plastic wrap, whatever. And then we're going to take our rolling pin and you're going to pound your butter until it's malleable. And then we're going to roll it into an 8 by 8, approximately 8 by 8 inch layer. So just give it a good pound. My rolling pin is approximately 10 inches long. So I think I'm pretty good. I need a little bit more this direction. And while you're doing this, you want to keep your dough refrigerated until you get your 8 by 8 inch square. Okay, we're pretty close. So now we're going to get our dough. Okay, now we are going to put our dough on a lightly floured surface. And you're gonna need some muscle because it's really cold. And we want to roll this out into a approximately 12 by 12 square. Okay, I have an approximately a 12 by 12 inch square. It's approximate. So now we're going to take our butter layer and we're going to put it in the middle of our square. And then we are going to fold in our corners to enclose the butter and pinch them together the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. we want to enclose the butter into our dough. Okay, now we're going to roll this out to a 10 by 20 inch rectangle. Okay, once you get your 10 by 20 inch rectangle, then we're going to do what they call a letter fold. So you're just going to fold this like you would fold a business letter. So you're going to fold part of it up, and then bring the top down over it. And then we're going to turn it 90 degrees, and we're going to roll it out again to a 10 by 20 inch rectangle. Okay, once you get your 10 by 20 inch rectangle again, you're just going to do another letter fold. One part up, one part down. We're gonna wrap this in plastic wrap, refrigerate it for an hour, and then we're gonna start the process all over again. Okay guys, our dough has been resting in the fridge wrapped in plastic wrap for an hour, so now we're ready for round 2. Okay, we've got our 10 by 20 approximately rectangle again, so we're going to do another fold. And then we're going to wrap it in our plastic wrap, and you're probably going to want to lightly flour your plastic wrap a little bit. Rewrap it tightly. We don't want it to dry out at all. And we're going to put it in the refrigerator for a minimum of 8 hours, but up to 24. Okay guys, that wraps up day 2. Not too hard, right? Just takes a lot of muscle to roll out that dough. So be prepared for that. And then stay tuned, because tomorrow we're going to be working on day 3, which will also be the grand finale. And we'll bake off these delicious buttery pillows of chocolate-filled goodness. So stay tuned, and I'll meet you back here tomorrow. Hi guys, welcome to day 3 of Pain au Chocolat. Today we get to do the grand finale. So what we're going to do is we are going to start by taking our dough out of the fridge, and we're going to work with half of the dough at a time. So I'm going to take it out of the fridge, I'm going to cut the dough in half, and then we're going to shape them, let them raise, and then bake them. So let's get started. Okay, our dough has been resting in the fridge for up to 24 hours. Mine has been in there for about 20. So you're going to take it out of the fridge. and we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to put the other half back in the refrigerator. A really helpful tool here is a bench knife. It works great for this final part of making your croissants. Work with this half. I'm going to wrap him back up and stick him in the fridge. Okay, we're going to put down just a little bit of flour. You do not need very much. We're going to put that down, and this is where you're going to need a lot of muscle because the dough is cold, and you know what happens to butter when it's cold. So it's going to take some muscle, but we want to roll our dough out into a rectangle that is 8 inches wide and 24 inches long. Okay, as you can tell, it takes some muscle to roll it out, so you're going to get your workout, but that's okay. So the other thing I wanted to mention is I found it easier to flip my dough, as you saw, every now and then flip it over, made it easier to roll it out. So I flipped mine throughout rolling it out. So we have approximately an 8 by 24 inch rectangle here. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my bench knife. You could also use a regular knife, or you could use a pizza cutter here, and we're going to cut it in half lengthwise. And then we're going to cut it in half again, and we're going to make 8 rectangles that are approximately 4 by 6 inches, 4 by 6. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to start, and this is just how I roll mine. Their instructions were to put 1 or 2 batons at the end and then roll it up. What I did, because I wanted my I didn't want my chocolate to all be in the same spot, is I put 1 baton of chocolate and I rolled it over, and then I added another and rolled it over. Now my husband asked that I add more chocolate, so I'm going to add 3. The recipe recommends 2, but I'm going to add 3 because he really likes his nice and chocolatey. So, and he requested it, so that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to roll it up, and you want to place it on your baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper or well greased. You're going to lay it seam side down, and then you're going to press it down into a flatter rectangle. And you're going to want to give them some room because we're going to let them raise and get puffy. We're going to lay them flat and flatten them out. Okay, now we're ready for the second batch. Now my husband also requested that we try Nutella stuff. So I'm gonna put some Nutella in a few of them to indulge him. He saw it somewhere and asked if I would try it. So we're gonna do a few of them filled with Nutella. I'm gonna start with the Nutella. I'm just going to spread out a little bit of Nutella. And because it's so melty, I'm only going to add one layer. oven, you want to place it seam side down and press it down into a rectangle. Okay, now I'm going to cover them and let them raise in a warm place for about an hour. You want to let them raise until they're nice and puffy. Once they start to puff up, I am going to turn my oven on to 425 degrees so it can preheat, and then we'll pop them in the oven and bake them off. Okay guys, my croissants have been raising for a little over an hour. I did find out, or did experience, that because the dough is so cold, it does take them a while to raise and get puffy. So, but I think mine have started to puff up enough that they can bake. My oven is preheated to 425, but before they go in, we are going to brush them with an egg that has been beaten with a pinch of salt. And I did also have found that an egg, when it's more room temperature, is easier to brush than an egg straight from the fridge. So when I start preheating my oven, I take the egg out and go ahead and beat it with a pinch of salt. So then we're just going to take a pastry brush and we're just going to brush the tops of them. And I'm going to pop them into my preheated 425 degree oven for 18 to 20 minutes until they're nice and golden brown on top. And then we'll bring them out and we can see our delicious chocolate croissants. Okay guys, we are all done. My croissants baked for about 18 minutes. You want them really nice and golden brown. And I've also let them sit for about 30 minutes. The structure needs some time to sit, so you need to just not bite into them until you want to give them time to cool a bit. So I've let mine rest for about 30 minutes, but look at how beautiful those are. Beautiful, golden brown, so delicious. So I'll give you an up close shot. See how beautiful that is? Hear how it's kind of crispy. That's what we're looking for. Crispy is the word I was looking for when I first started my video. I kept saying crunchy, not crunchy. They have that crispy texture on the outside, and when you let them sit for a day or two, they lose that crispiness. They're really soft. But let's check these out on the inside and have a bite. Flaky. Buttery. See all those beautiful layers? I hope you can see it there. See all those layers? So good. Cut one open so that you can see the texture, the crispiness, those gorgeous layers, and all that delicious chocolate. Who does not want to eat that? Perfect for holiday breakfast. And we have 2 holidays coming up, but honestly, you don't need a special occasion to make them. They are just so good. So a couple things. I just want to talk about raising for the last time. Because the dough is so cold, if your kitchen isn't fairly warm, it takes longer than an hour. I know King Arthur's recipe says that they should raise in about an hour. Because they're so cold, it takes longer than that. So my trick is to turn my oven on for just about 10 seconds and then turn it off, and it heats my oven just enough that it's warm in there. So and you don't want it really warm, I guess that's not, you just want to take the chill off and you want just a tiny bit of warmth in there. So I just heat my oven for about 10 seconds, turn it off, and then that's how I proof all of my bread. And I find that that works really well to do it that way. So that's what I did with these. And then When they start getting puffy, I take them out and put them on top of my stove and turn my oven on to whatever temperature I need. In this case, it's 425, and let them finish raising on top of the stove as my oven warms up. So that's a little trick there. If you want to just let them raise at room temperature, just know that it's going to take a while. It's going to take more than an hour. I would say an hour and a half or so if you're just letting them raise at room temperature, because the dough is so cold. The other thing is, I did mention at the beginning of the video, I did a little testing. They are good the next day. You just want to wrap them really well and store them at room temperature. I just use my domed cake plate and keep them in there. That's very airtight, so that works well. But just know that as they sit, they're good for 2 or 3 days that way, but as they sit, they do lose that crispy, buttery texture on the outside. They just become soft, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not the same as when they're fresh. So they really are best eaten the day that you make them. But I did try freezing them, and they do freeze well. I let mine come to room temperature, and then I heated one in the oven to test it and see how that worked. I heated it at 350, and you can do this with ones that haven't even been frozen. So if you want them warmed up a little bit the second or the third day, I warmed it at 350 degrees in my oven for 10 minutes and then took them out. And that does add a little more crispy texture again, not nearly as much as you have when they're fresh baked, but they do have a little bit of crispiness to them when you warm them in the oven, and then your chocolate remelts and gets ooey and gooey and so good. But freezing them does work. I just wrapped them really well and put them in the freezer, and they froze just fine. So that is an option. I did contact King Arthur Flour's their hotline, and I did ask if you could prep them and then freeze them so that you could bake them fresh, and they said that that really doesn't work very well. I didn't test it. I'm just going by their expertise, and they said that that really doesn't work very well, because I thought, how nice would it be to take a few days to prep your dough, shape them, and then have them frozen and just pop them in the oven. But they claim that doesn't work very well. I don't know, maybe down the line I'll test that, but as of now, I'm gonna take their word for it and just freeze them baked and then just warm them in the oven. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with me. This was really fun. It does test your baking skills a little bit, and this is something I talked about in my Empty Nesters video. It's really good to get out of your comfort zone and try something new. And I'm so glad that I was not deterred by the length of time it takes to make them, or deterred by the difficulty. It seemed to be something that was beyond my pay grade, but it really wasn't. And it was fun. So I encourage you to challenge yourself always, learning new recipes and how to do new things in your kitchen, and just give things a try. You never know until you just try. So I'm glad I tried, and I'm so happy I got to share this with all of you. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me below. I will be happy to answer any questions for you that I can. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the fun we're having here. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and share my videos. I would love for you to share my videos with others. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and coming along with me, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.